Hey, hello there, and welcome to my garden. It's another beautiful day in Portland, and I wanted to share it with you. So, my name's Darcy Daniels. I'm a gardener, garden designer, and creator of eGardenGo, and I am in Portland, Oregon. Our climate is we're a USDA zone 8B, 9A. So it's pretty mild, but we do get pretty hot in the summer. But right now, the temps are perfect and the forecast is great. We have had some rain recently. Actually, I was out of town, which is the perfect time to have it rain in my garden. So it's all taken care of and I don't have to worry about it. But now we've got a forecast of some really nice weather for the next, week or so. So the garden is just coming to life. If you've been on the channel before and watched a few other videos, um, you know that there's just a lot going on here. So I'm going to take you through again today and we'll see what we see. And that's kind of how we do the garden tours around here because, I walk through, I have so many plants and the garden is so full that it's uh, that there's just any myriad of things that I could show you. So what I do is I walk around and what catches my eye is what you get to hear about because everything is kind of fresh and new to me and when we walk through as well because it just changes just like that. So, all right, let's go take a look around, see what we see what catches our attention today. The street scene is really shaping up. Summer is a really good time for this garden. It can get really colorful. And while it's colorful now, it really changes a lot through the season, and there's so much more to come. But there's some things that are happening now that I want to make sure I show you because later they won't be necessarily around. So I've got this little sweet vignette right here is a little Penstemon pinifolius. It's an evergreen little ground cover, but gets these wonderful, um, dark, kind of orangey flowers that just cover it. Looks fantastic with that phlomis coming through there, and that deep purple uh, iris was really pretty, but kind of messy now. I don't have a lot of iris, but that was a pretty scene. Uh, and you can kind of see the color story that was happening. I've got another phlomis over here that we'll take a look at in a second. Um, the allium, this is the purple, or excuse me, the Mount Everest allium, which I have a love-hate relationship with. Last year I tried to begin the process of either, removing it, which actually became a little bit more, I think the real goal is spinning it because it was just too dominant in the bed. And early in the year, too much bulb foliage to deal with. So that'll be an ongoing process, but at the moment they're looking pretty good. Got this little Oentheria, which I'm sure I'm butchering the name on that, but sun lover, self-seeded in there, and looks great in combination with that penstemon and the phlomis. Fun little happening here is that red yucca uh, is going to flower for me this year pretty generously. And it's flowered before, but just not a lot. And so I love it when it flowers because they just last forever. And the hummers just come to it all season. So you might not be able to see that very well right now. Got a low growing cistus there, which is doing its thing. That's a hellebore, a variegated hellebore sternii, which flowered before, but honestly, I selected it for its foliage. So leathery foliage, variegated, and I've just got lots of hens and chicks that carpet the edges and fill in all the blank spots around the edges of this bed. So I'm working my way over here because there's something I definitely want to show you, and a color scheme that's making me super happy. And it's that rose in the center, that's Radway Sunrise. And it's just a kaleidoscope of color. You can see we've got uh, coral almost, and orange, a little bit of pink and magenta. And so there's all sorts of colors that you can pull out of this. So it looks great with yellow, looks great with red and yellow and um, all shades of yellow and blue and anyway. But what I've got it paired with is this sweet dianthus that carpets the ground and is covered in blooms now. And it's a great color echo, and the small flowers are nice in contrast to the larger rose. So that's kind of a nice element as well. That burgundy rounded form at the base is a barberry, and so it's kind of an ever-present contributor. Another conifer here that's an ever-present contributor, super drought tolerant, nice texture, looks great year-round, doesn't change much year-round. And there we are again. Those Mount Everest allium are kind of like saying, no, 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 keep me, I'm fine. But I'm a bit torn. But at this moment, I like them. Look at that. All right, kind of coming along, and just another view of that front parking strip. So the front parking strip is mostly full sun, although there are some areas you can see that it's changeable light out here. A little bit of shade at different times of the day, but generally speaking, we would call this full sun. That's Amsonia hubrechtii. And this is another favorite for, sun-loving texture, gray foliage. That's Artemisia seafoam. It's a really great one. And of course, the sedums. That's blue pearl, a favorite of mine. Now we're looking at the front slope, and this is my northwest corner. Still pretty sunny, but a little bit shady on this end, and just a lot going on here. There's a video of a renovation of this part of the. Hi, buddy. We're on the street side here, so we get get folks walking through the garden all the time. But that's part of what I love about it. Anywho, so a while ago I renovated this bed, and some of those processes are still uh, coming to fruition. One of the things that I added in the video, which I'll link to, look up in the upper right hand, or yeah, upper right hand corner, and I'll have a link to the video that talked about the renovation of this bed, and it will show you how it looked right after I made that renovation. And one of the main things I was trying to work in was this conifer, which is a Picea pungens pendula. Um, and I just love its blue foliage. I love its downward draping and cascading habit. And I've had it in a client garden, uh, been watching it in the client garden for many years and just never had the opportunity to grow it myself. So I made a renovation that allowed me to do that. Um, and so that's kind of what the choices were made around. And uh, you'll notice if you watch that video that there was um, another major part of the renovation was a rhododendron that I was excited about at the time, and I would be excited about it still had it survived, but it didn't. And sometimes plants just they fail when they go in, and you know, I don't have a high failure rate, and I do everything that I can to make sure that I give it a good start. But there was something about that one that either my planting technique was off or the plant itself was maybe not in optimum condition, but it didn't make it. And I tell you that not because I tell you that because I want you to know that that happens to all of us, and that those types of I'm going to use failure, and those are air quotes around that, are just part of gardening. So check out that video, and then you can kind of look at where I am now. I think that video was probably a year and a half or 2 years ago. And in the meantime, in this area, I'm waiting for that conifer to become, kind of the core of this bed. But why not play around in the meantime? So lots of flowering things can just be tucked in there. They don't live forever. Like this right in front is a, you know, tender perennial here in Portland. It's a dioecia. Absolutely gorgeous, right? Wonderful. And I like to have those types of plants in here. Um, and and I'm not counting on that being there next year, 2 years from now, or whatever. It was there last year, and so I have a pleasant surprise. It's because it returned. We had a reasonably mild winter. Mm, working at, I'm always working my edges, you know. So I've got little sedums through there. This guy's fallen down. Oop. Uh, and right there is little dianthus. It's got gray foliage that's going to be evergreen and kind of just holds that edge. Uh, just all the way to the edges, and always room for one more is the mantra around here. Uh, this up here is really kind of mingling together in a sweet way. Lots going on there. Allium, Christophii, huge star heads. Oh, if I can pull that one out, just anyways, they're just enormous. I love those. Contrasted with this is Allium Purple Sensation, which has kind of already come and gone, but its seed heads are so attractive and will remain attractive for quite some time. So the sequence of allium in my garden goes in terms of bloom sequence. I get Purple Sensation goes first. So these have flowered and now they're fading. Allium Christophii starts showing itself next. And then, let's see if I have one in. There's one behind me. I'll go look at it right back over here because they are subtly different. Um, this is um, Globe Master. And so it's the last to bloom for me. And I have other alliums, but those are the three big ones that I think about in terms of the sequence of bloom. This corner here has been, I've included it in a lot of videos. So be sure to check out its renovation over time. Oh, we got our little garden buddy there. That's Combo. He's not supposed to be out front. So we're going to take a pause and we're going to make sure he goes back where he belongs. And then we have the slope on the southwest corner of the property. Again, kind of one of my sunnier spots, that and the parking strip here, where I get to grow the sunlovers. The back garden tour, which I've done a number of times, but posted most recently a couple of weeks ago, is much shadier. And so it's a very different palette of plants. So I'm fortunate in my garden to have the variety of growing conditions so I can grow lots of different types of plants. So right now we're in a full sun. This strip through here is what I call my pollinator garden, or my meadow, my mini meadow, it gets the least amount of water from, my entire garden. I don't water it much, and I'm growing things that really kind of don't want a lot of water. So that's a verbascum. We've got yarrow. Some of these things are in containers along here. So I do have the containers on my drip system, and my containers are kind of like this overflow space for my garden. I bring things home, I collect them, and I have nowhere to put them. So I will grow them in containers for a while, keep them as a pet, and then figure out if they're going to find a place in the garden or not. That's a Schefflera rhodenifolia, which I've been growing on. Love that. And some hydrangeas there. Anywho, so those containers are under irrigation. In terms of layout of the garden, it goes, we got the parking strip, the driveway strip through here, the parking strip out front there, and then we got the southwest corner, and then there's this open, wide walkway that then goes and connects to the front door uh, around the corner there. You can see the hint of yellow. And there we are, front door right around the corner. And so this is the kind of upper garden, again, still on the south side, but because of all the plants, this front corner here is really quite shady. So this bed down in here has a lot of shade treasures, um, which kind of the glare might not be helping us out on that right now in terms of being able to see what's in there. But I will pause on a couple of things that you are probably seeing pretty well. And that is this beautiful rose. This is Westland. It's going up over the gate, which is the threshold to the back garden. I'm using a variegated boxwood, loosely trimmed to kind of a rounded shape to kind of set that corner. There's a rhododendron back there with nice foliage. Still a youngster, so it's going to get up and be a little taller and a little bit more dominant. One of my absolute favorite uh, hydrangea. This is an oak leaf hydrangea with golden foliage. It's called Little Honey. It goes in and out of production, so if you've got your hopes set on it, just keep looking, keep watching, because it does come into production. But I've been told by some of the growers that it can be difficult to propagate. So just keep your eyes out. That big leathery foliage there is Mahonia gracilipes. Very handsome shrub. And then down in here, we've got a mix of other shade lovers that are in various stages of development. And the front entry is, again, lots of containers. All of my containers are on a drip system, which makes it a little easier to kind of keep on top of them. And this is that front seating area that I've told you about a number of different times, but I don't know. I just need you to know that we just love this spot. This is where we hang out in the evenings in the first part of the summer and spring. If it's sunny in the afternoon, this is where you're going to find us. And it's surrounded by garden. And this area back through here, I've posted about before. And last year I posted about my struggles with this rose. This rose is Graham Thomas. He's a big guy. And last year I had some struggles with it in that it consumed this bed. It just kind of went in and engulfed this bed, and because it just got too heavy in it, and it covered everything up. So I made some supports in there that seem to be holding reasonably well. So the real test will be when this gets loaded with flowers, whether it'll be able to hold itself up to that. I am cutting a lot of them, so that's a side benefit is I get lots of cut flowers in the house. These are super fragrant, very nice. So that's been kind of a challenging bed, and I would say thus far this year, I'm pretty darn happy with what's happening down here. The plants that I've selected for just a nice color story aren't getting engulfed by the rose. And got my beautiful Stewardias pseudocamellia that is kind of the anchor on that northern side. And there's Combo again. He just is very interested in being out here right now. Kind of sunny, and he likes to be with mom, don't you, buddy? This blue conifer is a favorite. That's Picea pungens Montgomery. Wonderful blue foliage, and it's going to have this clematis here is going to bloom. I don't know, sometime in the next several weeks, and it's got big white blooms, and it's just nice draping over that conifer, and it's not so big that it is hindering the conifer, like shading it out too much. Absolute favorite fern. This is Dudia media. Look at that coloring. Oh, and then if you pair it with, Heucherella in the similar tones, it's just delightful. So that's the how the front garden is looking today. Well, the front seating area. Got this container, big container. And this container collection is kind of a bit of a treat, and it goes back to I had a nursery once upon a time, and as such, I had access to one of the really good wholesalers that was bringing in these containers, and was able to get them at a price I could afford. When I closed my nursery, I had some inventory, and so I ended up with some of these just enormous containers that I would never in a million years be able to actually purchase today. But I feel fortunate to have such a nice collection of them. And here we are on the narrow side yard garden. This is on my south side, but it's a little deceiving to call it my south side because it actually has a fair amount of shade because on this edge, the plants, provide cast a fair amount of shade. So all these treasures down here are shade-loving plants. So just because I say south side doesn't necessarily mean sunny side. Gotta point out this fern. The emerging foliage of this woodwardia is a delight. Look at those bronzy tones. It's a big old fern. And this one I actually moved and relocated this year because I wanted to set it a little farther back in that bed so that it would have room. Because here's the size of its um, fronds when they actually unfurl all the way. It goes way out in the path. So, which can be delightful, but um, you know. All right, so here we are in the south, and again, lots of containers that run along the house there. Big containers that allow me to grow lots of different plants, some of them temporarily. My calycanthus is waking up and giving me some gorgeous blooms. This is calycanthus Aphrodite, and I'm pruning it in an unconventional way. So it's actually a rounded shrub, but I've got it pruned to a single stem standard, which is a lot of work and I don't necessarily recommend because it puts off, a lot of these suckers down here, which I need to come through really regularly and rub those off. So I pretty much make it part of my daily routine to do that. We got our garden buddy taking in some sun, but we're gonna have to walk by there, buddy. So watch you. I'll have to watch my step because he's not very good at moving. Some clematis that are going to be coming through here, kind of getting ready to bloom. Then, of course, there's some that have already bloomed. This whole fence line has lots of different clematis, and they kind of ebb and flow through the year. And then I've trained this rose against the fence. I've got camellias trained against the fence, and just a whole host of other plants that I'm growing at the base of all of that. And this container collection here is in a quite sunny spot. So I've got some fun things going on. This one will be very much a later summer thing. There's a canna coming through, but at the moment we've got a nice salvia. So the hummers are just digging on that. I've got a vine going through. That dark stem there is actually a trimming from an Arctostaphylos that needed some pruning and some dead wood taken out. So I've discovered that those are really an excellent vine support. So that's not a plant, that's not the stem right here. That's a trimming from an Arctostaphylos. Um, and I've got my Butylon. This is the sign of summer. When those things start really growing and blooming, that'll bloom all summer long, all summer long, and the hummers will love it. And it wintered over for me last year, which was great. All right, so we're going to step away from this side yard. There are other videos that kind of walk you through some of my thinking in terms of how I designed the side yard here using repetition of plant material, kind of what I call binders. That's what one of the things that really helps my garden hang together is the fact that I use um, I, I repeat themes. So maybe it's a repeated color, maybe it's a repeated form, but the eye then has a place to go, an invitation. So in this situation here, we've got the coral tones that bounce back and forth and invite my eye to go, uh, down the walk. Then I might pick up the yellow, and the yellow has invited me to, continue examining the space and so on and so forth. So rounded shapes, this rounded conifer here, this is Chamaecyparis iceberg, speaks to this rounded evergreen. That's a little dwarf boxwood. And then farther down the line, there's another conifer that is rounded, which in winter, that's much more visible and much more important. Outside my studio, this little bed, it's a little shady now, but it actually gets a fair amount of sun. I've got a kind of a conifer that is, it's a Suga um, Thorson's weeping. So it's got a downward draping habit, but I am training it slowly upwards. So it's just kind of a cascading downward shape, fine texture, evergreen, and it's a great host for a clematis vine. Behind there, there's a loropetalum, and then right in front here, we've got a knockout rose that is, delivering the knockout punch right now. More salvia for early blooms, and then other things will be, filling this out later. The lilies are going to be glorious this year, I can already tell. And that's a hibiscus that'll bloom late in summer. Collection of succulents here outside the door. These are tender, so they're kind of put in and protected over the winter. I don't try and leave them out there. My deck has a couple of, big planter boxes that I planned in, so that allows me to have, containerized plants and just a nice kind of what I'll call a pivot point in the garden where I can have a, kind of a special plant that is signaling my attention and inviting me to continue the journey through the garden. Fatsia camouflage. This is an autumn moon maple, which I'm growing in a container. And up above, that is Schefflera taiwanense, and it's really coming into its own and creating just kind of a tall, open, airy canopy that really kind of defines the corner of the garden there. There is a video that I did last fall that kind of talks about this area, and it talks about this tree that I have in that very large container. And at that time that I did that video, I was going to get rid of that tree because I wanted to deal with that corner in a different way. But anyways, you can watch that video and I'll link to it up there in the right-hand corner. But I changed my mind. And, again, you can change, you can have an idea, you can sit with it for a while, and then you can change your mind. But what I did is instead of getting rid of that tree, I moved the container. The container is huge. I was not able to do this on my own, so it is something that I had to get a garden helper in to do with me because it was just too much of a physical project for me. But I'm so glad that I did because if, and maybe I'll talk about this in a different video, where just what the containers are doing in the garden in terms of um, acting as guideposts. Um, but this move here was really pivotal once I decided to do it. And what my inspiration was is in this area, there was a rounded boxwood shrub that I had grown there for quite a while that was kind of acting as that pivot point, and it was about that size. And that heaviness of structure, that shape was really important in this spot. But then I realized, well, that container could do that. And then I also get to elevate that canopy of that tree. The tree was developing a pretty nice form, and by moving it there, I'm making some pretty significant improvements in terms of how I define this space, the seating area there, and it's really hard to show you everything at once, but maybe you can see, but this area here is very welcoming, very private, very cozy, and that is thanks to what is happening on its perimeter and up above. So we've got that Schefflera, then we go to that, that's an Acer Circinatum Burgundy Jewel, and then there's that whole structure with all the vines. We've got a conifer that's here, and then we're on the backside, we've got other shrubs. So it is enclosed without feeling claustrophobic because they're not right over my head. They're just kind of strategically situated. And, those that I pointed out, coupled with the other layer of canopy and trees, is really creates an enclosed space that is still very dimensional. So this is the Stewardia is part of that plan, and the loquat up there. So it's all very layered, and also the trees that are on my neighbor's property. I helped select those, and we selected them kind of in conversation so that the trees that we planted weren't going to compete with each other over time. So I've got that big conifer in the corner is not going to conflict with that red leaf maple, which is not going to conflict with that columnar crabapple, which is not going to conflict with that uh, Rhamnus fine line or the monodelpha or the loquat, and you get the idea. So all of them are situated such that unless we decide we want something else, we shouldn't be forced into making a change. So we're just going to walk down this path. Again, I walked this one recently, and one of the things that's just so brings me just endless delight is that even though we walked through this, I don't know, just a couple weeks ago, it still feels different. It still changes. I see different things this time around than I do the others. You know, I got that saxifrage there, rhododendron pachysanthem, which echoes the nice bright, or the light variegation of the Weigela speaks to the rhododendron pachysanthem. That froth of blooms is just a sweet romantic vibe that mingles so nicely with those pink heucheras, which then speak to the clematis, and so on and so on and so on. Always changing, always evolving, and a mix of plants that are, common and then sometimes uncommon. We don't see this one grown very often. This one's a dictymus. Um, gas plant is its common name. And it has its moment. It's blooming. We're catching it now. I don't think I've ever caught it on film before, but it blooms for a couple weeks. And it's not in the perfect place, but when I was reading about it, I was really warned against trying to move it. And so I hesitate to move it until um, I know I have a backup plant. Because there is someplace else I'd like to try it, but I will leave it there for the near term. In a future video, I'm going to go around and I promise, well, to the best of my ability, I promise that I will do a fern video because there's just so many wonderful ferns that I'm growing. And I'm no fern expert, but I do love them, and I have developed a bit of a collection of them. So we've almost made a full circle. I'm just going to do a short, I'm going to do a turn around and pan so that you can kind of see the end of the loop is this north side of my garden. Very narrow garden, 5 feet or less, and it's got vines on the fence line. Some are getting to the end of their show, others are kind of coming into bloom. This one hasn't even started yet. And this one's actually a pretty young one, but boy, I love that bloom. So I'm hoping that she'll, really wake up and start showing more next year. And then down on the ground plane, just lots of shady foliage. Whew, we went all the way around the garden on that tour, and it took a while. So if you're still here with me, thanks so much for hanging in. And and if you need to watch it in a couple segments, that's okay too. What I'd really like to hear from viewers is what you are interested in seeing in terms of the types of videos that I do. These long walks really give you an immersive feel for the garden, but they take a while. And the other thing I kind of struggle with is trying to decide how much effort to put into the captioning or the putting the on-screen plant names. That if you've watched my videos before, you've seen that I do like to do that because I know how helpful that can be. But I will be honest with you, it's a fair amount of effort. And so that effort slows down the frequency of my postings. So I'm kind of in this position where I'm trying to figure out the right path forward. And maybe it's a combination of shorter, shorter videos that are not as focused on really looking at the plants and just doing an overview. Or maybe it's longer videos and less frequent or whatever. So let me know what you're thinking, how much you value having those on-screen identifications. That would be really interesting for me to know. I'd like to know whether the long walks are important to you, or whether you'd rather have, smaller sections, more in depth. Or I suppose you're going to say, I want both. So either way, just let me know what you're thinking. Leave a comment. And if it's your first time here, thank you so much for hanging in there through the whole thing. And I really do hope that you'll stick around and that you will like and subscribe and hit that notification button